Don't miss another Minky Monday on The Zone. Tune in all day Monday to win Minky Couture blankets, the original classy blanket. Minky Couture makes the perfect Father's Day gift, and Zone listeners get 50% off with code ZONE50. Don't miss Minky Monday on 97.5 The Zone. DJ PK, we're joined once again by David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz. David, good morning.
You guys go to Coldplay in Denver this week? Is that what that little trivia was when you fly out there to go see him?
It was just Yacht deciding that was the band. Period.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, Friday with DJ and PK. You know, I was thinking the other day, if I was going to go on vacation and get away, the very last thing I'd want to do is talk to my two favorites, David James and Patrick Kinahan, and then I could turn it off and go on vacation. But not before I've talked to DJ and PK.
And you are indeed going on your June summer vacation, your traditional trip right after this, aren't you? You're out of here.
Yes, I'm on the way to the airport right now.
Nice.
We may have to pull over on the side of the road if you get verbose before I get into the parking garage.
Hey, I'm not the only one here who rarely runs out of words. You rarely run out of words, but I wonder if you're running out of words to describe what Tyrese Halliburton is doing. That is 4 massive shots beating 4 separate teams in 4 rounds of the NBA playoffs. And on social media, someone has compiled all the clips and keeps adding to them. Apparently, he's 13 of 15, according to this, in the last 2 minutes. Game tying or go-ahead shots. And they got video all these shots. Even if they miss one along the way and the numbers aren't exactly right, it's really impressive. And watching, he goes left, he goes right, he goes all the way to the rim, he shoots a 3. I mean, it's all over the place.
So this is probably the single most impactful playoff run in NBA history. Like, just in regards to shots, moving win probability at a given moment, one player's ever had. Players have probably had more dominant. Shaq in Orlando's playoff run was pretty dominant. Hakeem Olajuwon's had some dominating. But in regards to individual plays moving the meter on winning, I'm not sure any player's ever had a playoff run that's had this big an impact.
Yeah. It's simply amazing. And I was wondering if you have the Thunder. Most of these guys, if not all of them, never been in this spot, and you can tell them, hey, Pacers never die, man. They got 9 lives, so you're up by 15 with 10 minutes to go. You can say all that, but how much do you have to go through something before you really understand what they're talking about?
And that's, I think, the essence of Game 1 of a 7-game series, and we'll see. I mean, I was looking at the FanDuel line this morning. It's actually moved to 11 for Game 2. I think it was 8.5, 9.5 yesterday. They've actually moved it to 11 to Game 2. So the odds makers are not moved by Tyrese Halliburton in regards to who's going to win this series. But I think Indiana committed, 19 turnovers in the first half of this game. And then, so on that same level, PK, I think, you can tell Indiana, hey, they're swarming, they're handsy. Every time you get inside 2 feet to paint, a second and third guy crashes on you. You've got to make your passes a step earlier. They're going to give you open corner threes, all the same things everyone else said. But until you've played Oklahoma City and felt it, I don't think you are able to kind of understand it. And maybe the exact same thing is true for the resiliency of the Indiana Pacers and the way that they stay engaged in games for all 48 minutes.
There have been plenty of series where Game 1 has not told us the truth about the series. I mean, there's a chance for everyone to scope out what the other team is doing and adjust. And I thought the second and third scorers for the Thunder in Williams and Holmgren, man, they both really struggled and did not make shots they normally make. And they're just not going to shoot like that the whole series. Now, when do they get going and to what degree? That's a good question, but they got to do better than that.
I do think that Jalen Williams is a little bit of the bellwether here for what happens with Oklahoma City in these playoff series games and makes sense and Shea's consistent and he's the second scorer. And I wonder whether Rick Carlisle may say to Shea, yeah, guess what? You're going to average 38 a game. And we're just not going to let Chet Holmgren and we're not going to let Jalen Williams make plays, which then, Lou Dort hits 5 threes in the first half of this game last night, but is are you really relying on a 30% three-point shooter in Lou Dort to be able to make those plays consistently, time in and time out? And I think there's some interesting lineup things. Oklahoma City's great. Don't misunderstand me. But there's been some interesting lineup things with Oklahoma City that no one has taken advantage of yet. Maybe you can't. But when they play Harkenstein and Caruso and Dort, it's a brilliant defensive lineup. But, boy, that lineup should struggle to score. They had a lineup last night where they had Isaiah Joe as kind of their one shooter on the floor with either Jalen Williams or Shea. There's some level where in here I think there's a chance Indiana could force Oklahoma City into more offensive-minded lineups that then hurt them a little bit defensively. Could impact the way the series plays out, hopefully, because really anything in life would be better than Oklahoma City winning the title.
You're so down on them.
What was your original initial reaction to Austin Ainge?
Yeah, I think I wasn't surprised that we hired Austin Ainge. I was taken aback when Ryan Smith said it's Austin's show, and maybe I just missed it. I didn't expect that. I thought he was going to be, one of the people in the front office. But yeah, I was a little taken aback, not in a bad way, just surprised when at the press conference he said this is Austin's show, and it's a seismic shift to the front office. I think that's. And I wasn't expecting a seismic shift to the front office.
What will be the seismic difference between the two Ainges?
So I don't know that, but you just definitely have a different decision maker, right? Like if Justin Zanuck is now reporting to Austin Ainge. So I just think, and I think you have Austin Ainge is going to be much more actively involved in that room than Danny was. Like Danny's been very clear the whole time. They're like, yeah, I'm involved and I'm making decisions, but I'm not going to be in the grit and grind of it all. I've got a feeling listening to Austin Ainge, his interview with you guys and at the press conference and with JP Chung on Roundball Round, he's going to be in the grit and the grind. I have a feeling that Austin Ainge is going to be spending 20 hours a day at that office. And so he's going to have a real stamp on this in a way that's just a different person running the show who's hands-on there day to day with just a much larger impact on it's just a different person. Like, I don't know how Austin Ainge is different than Danny Ainge. I don't know either of them well enough to be able to answer that question. But I do know that, like, if you've got three guys, you're all deciding between the 21, someone's got to make the decision. It's a different person now. That means you're probably getting a different decision.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to hit you up on as far as the actual decisions, because it would seem basically in theory that you could potentially have a different decision, but I wonder if that will actually work out that way as far as, okay, I have the final say, I make the final recommendation to the owner, and then we go. But I'm wondering if that really would be three different decisions and then Austin has the final one, or would they be able to form a consensus? I'm wondering how that will work. I don't know that we'll ever know necessarily, but I'll find that process fascinating.
So, I mean, I don't know if this is entirely, but let's go with like what's kind of a story of Jazz lore. I mean, there's a bunch of, I could go to probably a multitude of drafts. I could go to a Kevin O'Connor draft and tell a similar story, but there's, the analytics department reportedly, supposedly, there's been stories written about this, wanted Desmond Bain. Mm-hmm. Teaching staff wanted Jaden McDaniels, and the GM wanted Udoka Azubuike. Well, the GM gets the call.
Oops.
So, I think that's kind of what I'm talking about, is you can have a lot of different opinions in a room. They all can be right. Some can be right. Some can be wrong. But at this point, you're kind of guessing on all of it. And I was in a Seattle Supersonics draft room in which it was Ronnie Brewer, Mo Sene, and I can't remember who the other player they were looking at was. The GM actually kind of knew he was out because of the fact that the Oklahoma City Thunder ownership was taking over and knew he was out, and he stepped aside and let somebody else make the decision. So, I mean, somebody's got to make the decision when it gets down to it. It's not, I know it's nice when everyone talks about, oh, we do it collectively and it's all, yeah, we can do it all collectively until until the decision has to be, then somebody has to make it. And my point is that somebody is now different. So that's a seismic shift in your front office.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand. What have you heard about Austin around the league, if you've heard anything?
You know, it's interesting. Your phone rings on days like that. And I'd say the number one takeaway I got from Pete was multiple people talk to me actually just about what a class act great guy he is, just in the sense of like every interaction with him in a fairly inauthentic league has been very authentic. Someone just even referenced like this year going to Boston, and he came up and said hi and wondered how things were going in a way that was just real rather than a lot of the communication this league is I need something, I want something, I'm trying to figure something out. His seemed much more just like, oh, what's going on? You know, checking in was very appreciated by the person I was talking to, and they said that's pretty consistent to who he is and how he interacts. The other one was just really good early talent recognition, just has always had a knack, even all the way down to, you know, younger, the 14-year-olds, and understanding who's important at 14, so they're going to be important at 16, they're going to be important at 18, and just very early talent recognition, and thus having had eyes on guys for a long period of time. And then another conversation was that, you know, he obviously did a really good job on Peyton Pritchard and Aaron Nesmith. Ironically enough, Nesmith now playing for Indiana, but those are two of the picks that people said to me kind of really he was intimately involved in.
Listen to our Danny Ainge interview wherever you get your podcasts, and he talks about Austin and Nesmith and how all that played out in the pandemic, and Austin being really responsible for going to see the workout and then being really committed to that's the guy right there. So you can get that wherever you get your podcasts.
I will check that out. I also sometimes go to KSLSports.com and just get it off the website. It's an old school way to do it.
Whatever works for you. They're all out there on YouTube now with
I don't know if you know this, but those guys in the morning, DJ and DK, do some really incredible, awesome interviews. I pretty regularly go listen to what they have to say on the web at KSLSports.com because they are pretty influential people in the market who've really moved the meter for about 20 years now.
Thank you, David.
Okay. Who knew?
So Austin is obviously coming from an organization that's drafting very late. The Jazz are drafting very early, and Austin said that that's not a big deal because everybody's doing homework on the top 20 players, as you point out, for a long time, long before you know where you're going to be drafting and maybe even exactly where they're going to fall. But he said the motivation really is, when there's an opportunity to trade for one of those guys, you have to figure out if that guy's a guy that you just have to stay away from because he's going to be a bust, or if that's a guy who's really going to flourish in a second or third organization. And we've got two guys now leading their teams in the finals, and you can go back 20 years to Chauncey Billups, and then you can fill in between. So I guess that is one reason for the Jazz fans who are thinking, man, how prepared can he be to draft this high in the draft? Well, everybody has to be, if not for this draft, for 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Yeah, I mean, the second draft is real, right? That's what a lot of people in the league call it, is the guy plays on his first team, and then who are you taking in the second draft, which is, you know, when they become available. If you look at this year's NBA Finals, there's Obi Toppin and Aaron Nesmith. They're both second draft players, right? The Knicks drafted Obi Toppin and then decided they're going to move on from him, and obviously Kevin Pritchard, who has hit most things out of the park for Indiana, had an evaluation there that said, like, yeah, we actually believe in him and understand what he can do. And while maybe in New York he didn't get the opportunity, it's important to have eyes on these guys for the 2 or 3 years before they come into the league, because you can get really tarnished from just watching their NBA time, and then you have to be able to have some some reference point by which you're looking at their NBA play. So if you watch Obi Toppin in New York, and they're trying to put the ball in his hands and do all these kind of things, and you're like, well, my evaluation of Obi Toppin was he was never going to be able to do that anyway, but I did think he'd be a good, you know, switching big, hit some outside shots, and be able to run the floor in transition. Oh, look at this. We got a team that plays in transition. We like to switch, and we got Tyrese Halliburton to get him looks. Let's sign him, right? So I think that's, you know, even Nesmith is I don't quite understand what happened with Neesmith in Boston. He couldn't stay healthy. If it was my memory, I think there was some real frustration with that there. But, I mean, this guy's got some real toughness to him that I didn't know he had. And if you saw that at Vanderbilt, then you know he's going to be able to bring that to you. You certainly, I think Neesmith is probably the best example of this conversation because there's no way that Indiana made the decision to go get Neesmith off of his Boston tape, right? He almost never played. So you better have a reference point on him somewhere else other than just his NBA tape.
What did you extrapolate from Austin when he was asked about the tanking? He said essentially that's not going to happen this year.
So I actually thought this was like the fourth or fifth most important comment of the press conference. I understand why it got the headlines. I'm not ignorant to that. I thought his comment that players want hope and they want to win or they want to try to win, it's maybe the way he phrased it, was a far more important comment. And I think what he was referring to is that when you start roster manipulation and minute manipulation and playing games manipulation, you start to zap hope. I don't take the Washington Wizards, for example, last year. They didn't do any of that. They won 18 games, I think, for the extra one. But they may have hope, right? Bub Carrington and Alex Sarr might be looking at each other and be like, you know what? If we keep growing, we're going to be pretty good together. If, they might be looking at Keyshawn George and be like, yeah, that's a piece. They may have some so they had a guy this year and then the three of them get together. I think you can win 18, 19, 20 games and be trying to win every night and still have hope because Trey Johnson and Keyshawn and Keontae George begin to find a combination, or, Isaiah Collier and Kyle Filipowski begin to come together and grow together and see where they might be able to go. And it may not be hope for March of 2026 or April of 2026. It might be for 2028 or something of that sort. But it's important that they have a vision to where they're trying to go and where they're trying to go together. And I think that's what I took from that comment. They want to win and they want hope. Okay, you can try to win in this league and not do it, but still try to win every night. And you can grow and have some hope. I didn't take his comments in any way, shape, or form leading me to believe we are going to completely add two big-time players, try to win 45 games next year. I didn't hear that. I know a lot of people did. That's not what I heard out of that press conference.
David, we'll leave it right there. You enjoy your vacation, and we will talk to you when you come back all tanned and rested and relaxed and ready to go.
Can I tell you what? Another sign of the DJ and PK perfection. I'm literally turning left right now into whatever parking company is a sponsor of KSL Sports Zone, because I don't want to say, because I don't know who your sponsors are, right at this moment. I mean, just pure perfection, DJ. Always. You're amazing. And you're okay, PK.
Thank you.
Okay.
Enjoy the time off, David. We'll talk to you when you get back.
PK, I just want to let you know your who knew got a big laugh from my wife in the car.
Okay.
You're the best, guys.
All right, see ya. DJ and PK coming up. Travis Hansen, more hoops with a former BYU basketball star. The Cougars coach gets a new contract. You think Travis is looking at Austin Ainge thinking, I need to do that? Or you think he's looking at Austin like, he is crazy to be in that line of work?
Well, Travis's name, not by me, has been linked to the Atlanta Hawks. And I don't know what I'm available to say, but it's a possibility unless something has changed in the last week, if you get my drift.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk to Travis coming up at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. Jason Kreis, Real Salt Lake Director of Operations and Special Projects, is next right here on The Zone. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win tickets to see Jason Aldean, July 26th at the Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Don't miss Jason Aldean on the Full Throttle Tour with special guests Nate Smith, Raylan, and DJ Silver. Tickets are now on sale at livenation.com. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. We're joined now by Jason Kreis, Real Salt Lake Director of Operations and Special Projects. Jason, good morning.
Good morning. How we doing?
We're doing well. That was a difficult May for the club. There were no victories, just 3 points in 7 matches. And I'm curious, as someone who's been around the league for a while, how do you try to balance the emotion you see flying around the organization? What do you say when times are really good, and what do you say when times really aren't that good?
Well, I think you have to be measured and consistent, DJ. I think it's and this comes through experience, right? Just it comes through being around it long enough to know that it's never as good as people think, and it's never as bad as people tend to think. So just trying to be even keeled through things, and also I think to be more focused on performance than necessarily results. For me, I think we all understand that we're in a business where you're expected to win, and we want to win. But you've got to look at success a little bit differently sometimes. And you have to be a little bit more focused on performance sometimes than results, because my opinion is that if you keep performing at a high level, then the results will begin to take care of themselves. So, I do feel that over the first half of this season, we have performed pretty darn well most of the time. It hasn't been 100% of the time, but most of the time we've performed well. And we've had some really unfortunate circumstances, referee decisions, injuries, so much of it that has led to poor results. But the performances have been mostly positive. And I think in particular over the past couple of weeks, the performances have been quite good. Really feel like we've outplayed our opponents in these games, but for one reason or another, we haven't gotten the results that would align with those performances.
At an ownership change, I'm wondering how it affects you and what others around you do as far as your job goes.
It really doesn't affect it. What it does is it gives us a lot of confidence and a lot of feeling of support. I think the new ownership group has a very an excellent longer-term vision for the club. And so I think it feels like there's a plan in place for consistency and support. And because they're local, we can have, I think, just a better communication line and a more consistent one with the leadership. So it gives me personally, and I know Kurt and Tony and the other folks in the leadership group here feel like it just feels more stable and more longer term, I guess is the right way to say that.
Long term means different things in different sports. We're learning about the National Hockey League now that we have a team here. They sign 8-year contracts and nobody bats an eye. Well, that's not true. They bat an eye, but nonetheless, they do it. Right now, it's an important decision because it's an 8-year deal. And we're seeing the NBA where teams used to be built over 5 years seem to be built over or 2 or 3. I've always thought 3 years is a long time in soccer. So when you're talking long time, are you talking about looking 2 or 3 years out? Are you talking about looking 5 or 10 years out? What does a long time mean?
Well, I think from ownership's perspective, they're talking about generational, right? I mean, they're talking about passing this down through their family members. And so for them, I think it's much, much longer term than probably we're thinking. But people in the management here should be thinking more 3 to 5 year plan. Obviously, head coaches, they need to be thinking about every single week. And so it's everybody kind of has a little bit of a different scope. But I do think one thing's certain, and as we talk about decisions, as we talk about adding players to this group, the messaging keeps coming back that is this going to help us in a longer term view? It seems that we don't want to be making decisions for short term gains if potentially that's going to mean long term sacrifice. It's the opposite now, and I love it. I mean, that's the way I view things, that we should be looking more longer term. We should be building a group here that can be with us for many years. We should be trying to sign players that can lead us to more consistency, because I believe that word, that idea of consistency is how you build successful teams and teams that can compete for championships on a consistent basis, if you're not going to be a team that's going to go out there and sign the Messis and the Suarez's of the world.
Well, RSL probably isn't going to be that team, but it does look like this attacking group could use a little more experience because to your point about the performances, chances get created, but the goals don't follow. The finishing hasn't quite been there. But then I look out and see 3 21-year-olds among the top 4 attackers on the team. And if you add up all the starts for the season, it's shocking how many have gone to people 21 and younger. And you can excel at a younger age in soccer, and we do see it, but those results still tend to be the exception, not the rule. And we're seeing this with all our teams here. The Jazz, the Mammoth, RSL, they've all gone young, and nobody's in a playoff position. So how much is that a factor, and how much is it like, I don't care what the pain is, Gozo's 18, and we are going to ride with that guy because he has shown stuff, and he's only 18.
Yeah, no, Goza's been a really bright star over the past 7 or 8 games. Diego Luna's obviously been a bright star for the majority of this season. Dom has had his moments where he's been really bright as well. But you're right. I mean, we are going to continue to be a club that is focused on development. That is part of our DNA here, and we take pride in it. And I think a lot of fans, I've gotten some feedback lately that a lot of fans are taking pride in that as well, understanding that that's what we do. But part of that development is also being in a winning environment and being led by some mentors. And so I think that the mixture right now has been a little bit too heavy on the youth, and with nobody really there leading them from a mentorship perspective. So absolutely, in this transfer window, we are looking for players that can lead through their experiences a bit more.
Everybody in basketball wants the next Steph Curry, and everybody in baseball wants, the big time home run hitter. Give me Ohtani or something like that. And in soccer, it's easy to say, oh, you need the number 9, you need the striker, you need the goal scorer. But in this case, that's not just an easy thing to say. I look at some of the and Diogo Gonzalez, has probably got to take heat for some of the way he's played. But I also see him get to the end line and play a cutback ball, and the player just stop his run. You're like, well, if you just kept running, that's a goal. That is a goal. And so I'm wondering how much a goal scorer up top who is really lethal, really good, how much that would change the vibe.
Yeah, DJ, I think it would change it a lot. I really do. Somebody that the players can look to bear the burden of the goal scoring. Right now, the person that is bearing the burden of our goal scoring is an attacking midfield player. And I think that's a little much, and I think it's weighed heavily on him. He's done an amazing job of continuing to show up, but you can see that there's moments where he's pressing a little bit, and that's leading him to make some poor decisions, I think. So yeah, a focal point for the group to look to and say he's our guy, and that guy in turn has to be able to handle that because it's not easy. So this has to be, the characteristics of this player as we consider him. We have to consider all things, not just what he can bring from a technical and tactical perspective, but we need to consider whether or not this player has the type of personality that can handle the weight and the burden that's going to be placed upon him.
Soccer fans exist in the digital sphere, and they will do their own research and come up with their own theories. And someone has put out a list, and I don't know how accurate it is. Some of it's definitely accurate, but the 15 recent signings and what they were brought in for, and then they judge how many succeeded or failed in their mind. And the thing that struck me out of all that was how many players had been brought in for free or under $500,000 off the list that they came up with. And certainly, Kalskin at right back, man, that was a good pickup. He was in Portland, and he's been playing really well there. And, you drafted Emeka Nelly. He's hurt now, but he's played really well. There's some real value signings. Bringing Cabral in was a great move. But you can't always bargain basement. I mean, it's a salary cap league. You've got to find some bargains. You can't pay everybody. But you do have to pay somebody. And when the last sale came, it seemed like it took a while for the ownership and the management to get on the same page and decide to go all in on somebody. You mentioned earlier there's more communication because the Millers are local. Can that process be sped up?
Yeah, I believe it can. I believe it can. And I just think it's from my perspective, this is an area that we have to continue to evolve and challenge ourselves with that process. And so, it's always difficult because it always seems like there's another transfer window right on the other side of the last one. But I do think that we need to look at the process of how we're acquiring players. And we need to, like you said, we need to evolve. I think historically, when I go back and look at the Real Salt Lake team that I coached, historically, we were the same way. We found all these bargain basement, I think you just called it bargain basement signings. The Chris Wingers of the world was waived. Javier Morales, when we picked him up, had basically failed in Spain and was looking for a club in Argentina. Fabian Espindola was looking for a club. He was out of a club. Literally I could go down the line and list every single player. I mean, Kyle Beckerman, in essence, was traded from Colorado for a player that was, not even proven in Medi Bellucci. So on down the line, we did a really, really efficient job of finding players for less than their valuation should have been at that time. We captured on moments, right? And so I think we are going to have to continue that. I think there's no doubt in my mind that if RSL is going to be successful, we are going to have to be the best recruiters and the best scouters out there.
Well, Jason, we appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for joining us, and we'll check in with the team again next week. Off this weekend. It's an international break, but we'll check back in a week. Thanks.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Jason Kreis, Real Salt Lake Director of Operations and Special Projects. Travis Hansen, former BYU basketball star, joins us at 9 o'clock right here on The Zone.
Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Year of the Week. You can submit your nomination at KSLSports.com/contest and then listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Year of the Week, and it's sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
The Indiana Pacers have done it. 9.5-point underdogs. Ha! Down 15 with 10 minutes to go. Ha! Halliburton with 0.3 of a second left for their only lead of the game. They're just here to win. Everything else, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. If you're looking for great stats, and nobody had a Jokic-like line, and nobody runs up and down the court and is as impressive, as awesome as Giannis when he splits two guys and dunks on everybody. But at the end of the night, somebody hits a shot. His name is Tyrese Halliburton usually. And they win a game, and they've done it again. This is a team that had a losing record on New Year's morning, and yet here they are in the finals. And they just got everyone flabbergasted by how the heck they pulled that off again. On the one hand, it seems like a lucky 1,000,000-to-1. How could you ever do it? Except they've done it in every single playoff round. So I think we're all coming to the conclusion, well, this is just something these guys do. It's not normal, but it's normal for them.
Well, what you're saying, as you referenced the New Year's record, that all was quiet on New Year's Day, and now
yes.
They are making a lot of noise.
That is true. Well done. Well played.
Yes, and no one on this planet is closer to winning an NBA championship than the Indiana Pacers.
Right?
No one. You cannot argue that statement. No one. Unless, of course, you go BYU in college, but that's another story. And can they do 3 more? I still would not bet that would happen, but they have been showing up every series. I can't recall who I heard. We listen to a lot of stuff. We read a lot of stuff, and stuff gets in our minds. But I think it was Antonio Daniels. He does a midday show on NBA radio, and usually I listen in the car on the way to the gym because it's about time that I go to the gym right around noonish, when I get home and all that stuff. And he was saying he picked against them against the Bucks. And who they play?
Cleveland,
that's right. He picked against them against Cleveland. He picked against them against New York, and he's picking against them against the Thunder. And he openly admits it, man. Didn't you pick against Dallas every series?
I'm not doing that to Rick Carlisle again. I've learned my lesson. And I thought they were going to beat Milwaukee. When you told the story, that's surprising. Why did he think they'd lose? I get why he picked Cleveland. I think everybody picked Cleveland. New York seemed much more of a toss-up to me. Once you get away from the New York media, they go nuts and go crazy. But I think for most of the country, that series was a toss-up. It was more of a, well, what's going to happen now? I mean, I thought, and I think most people thought either Boston or Cleveland was going to win this, and somebody might beat one of them, but nobody was going to beat them both. It was probably going to be Boston versus Cleveland, and yet they both got knocked out in the second round. So
yeah,
that just the conference final felt wide open. Anything could happen. And game one, when you saw what the Pacers did to the Knicks, it's just, and the pressure in New York because there's so much hype. And the media can act like such fans, and they just get so whipped up. It's just like, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like the Knicks are playing 5-on-6. It's just holy cow, man.
I thought New York media was the toughest, and you just said they can act like fans?
Yes. They act like angry fans, I'll give you that, but they act like fans nonetheless. And when they start talking about, there's no place like the Garden, when they sound like fans.
Wow, man. You know, you've never been published in the North Star Ledger like
You're right.
I
I have not. And it's awesome that you got that byline. That is fantastic. All the Irish relatives and all the Italian relatives who all love to argue, they can all agree, well, that's awesome. There's probably one cranky, it's just one story. He's got to get hired. But I think most people are like, that's awesome.
They did ask me to write a piece on Keith Van Horn when he was drafted, traded type thing there.
Made perfect sense, right?
Yes, and I included, they have a little italicis above the byline, and they said he covered Keith Van Horn for the Salt Lake Tribune, for the University of Utah the last 4 years, and he's a New Jersey native. They left that in.
Nice. Gives you more credibility. I can see why they left it in.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't lived there in 30 years, but what the heck?
Yeah, you didn't say I've lived here for 30 years, and you're a New Jersey native. Told the truth.
And I still think I got enough Jersey blood in me to be able to call that. That place has a piece of me. Like Renee Ingles told us when Joe came back. I don't know if you remember when we were talking to him on the floor. She said, Utah has a piece of our hearts.
Yep.
And I know exactly what she was getting at. The Pacers have been overlooked, disrespected. I don't think that Rick Carlisle has ever been overlooked and disrespected. I think he's a classic NBA coach. He was a grinder, bench guy as a player, but he made it, right? And what did he make it on? He probably made it on, he had skill. You all have to have skill to get to that level. I think you got to have skill to make a high school team, for that matter, unless your father is a friend of the coach, which happened in my high school, but that's another story. That he had to do whatever it took, and he doesn't call the timeout, allowing them, and it was such a great move not to call the timeout. But the Pacers still, I don't think, even though they're up 1-0, I still don't think they're getting the respect that they have earned, not that deserved. But my word that I would say is earned, because a lot of people will say, oh, they deserve more. But it's usually what you earn. And maybe you can draw a line between earn and deserve. But I like to use the word earn as far as that goes, because it's undeniable that they have earned this level that they're at. And that's the most important. You have to work for it. And you can even say Austin Ainge. All right, the dad, the name is there. I get it. But once he got in, I believe he earned the right to get this position that he's gotten. And that, to me, is really important. Have you earned the right to be where you're at? The Pacers, yes. Has Halliburton earned the right to be called a big-time clutch shooter? Without question, right? Has Oklahoma City earned the right to be in the finals? Yes. Have they earned the right to win it? Not yet. And this is the first type of adversity that they've had in this glorious season that they've enjoyed. How will they respond? And I get it. These are two out-of-the-way places, but I am into this series as much as probably any series that I've been in recent years. Obviously, I would have been into the Jazz Bulls more and all that. And then when I was working in California and had an opportunity to cover some stuff with the Lakers there, that was the case. And the funny thing is, you talk about being fans. I was told before the Bulls won that first title against the Lakers in '91, I was told ahead of time by the bosses, hey, we're going to put you on this series if the Lakers get there, right? And I believe they had to play Portland, and it was Game 6 at the Forum, and they beat Portland. Oh, my gosh. You had never seen a bigger Laker fan in your life than me.
Because you got to cover the NBA Finals.
Yes.
There's one thing you learn pretty quickly in the media. Everybody roots for what they need.
Yes, and I was not on the conference final, but they were going to put me on, and I covered all those games. And, I've said that many times. I was in the locker room when the Bulls won.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is a level of fandom there. But I get your point. New York is bloated in everything they do.
Yeah.
But right now, it's the Pacers. And can they do it for 3 more times? This would be a phenomenal story. It's a bigger story because of what you just said of them being under 500 in January than it would be that the glorious season that the OKC Thunder had with the MVP.
16-18 when the calendar turned to 2025. And so you figured out they went 34-14 from there, and now they've gone 12-4, now 13-4 in the playoffs. Interesting here is that regardless of venue, they've gone up 2-0 in every series and lost Game 3 in every series and won Game 4 in every series. Now, we may well see those trends break, but that's how they've been playing. And I think there is a certain amount when you're up 2-0, one team's really desperate, and it's not the team with the it's not the team with the 2-game lead. Yeah. And I think that emotion, that energy, it means so much. But I am really looking forward to Sunday night.
Oh, I agree. I'm with you too. After
what happens now.
It's an amazing story. After 35 games, they were 16-18. That's incredible.
What?
Yeah, that's what you just told me.
The 34 games, 16-18.
Oh, rats.
DJ PK, when we come back, a guy who can do math on the radio, but will probably choose not to. Travis Hansen, former BYU player, joins us next. We'll talk with him. New contract for the BYU basketball coach, and he's known Austin Ainge for a long time. What does he expect there with Austin taking over now? We'll talk with Travis Hansen next. Stay with us.